What is up, everyone? How are we doing today? My name is Aaron Letty. I am the fulfillment leader here at Results Driven. I want to thank everybody for hopping in today. Before I introduce our guest today, we got a special one ahead of us today. So before we dive into that, guys, I want to kind of talk about the discussion of what we're going to hit today. Today, we're going to be diving into, one of I think the most untapped marketing channels of what we have in this industry, around the digital marketing strategy. So before we kind of dive into that and I introduce our guest, I want to talk about, the strategy of diversifying our marketing. We have a lot of people that, we deal with on a day-to-day basis where they're only doing, cold calling, SMS, RVM, a lot of cold channels. So I think it was a great idea to bring Mr. Brandon Bateman into the equation today to kind of talk about, some of the warmer, hotter marketing channels that are out there for people to really take advantage of. And I want him to kind of take a deep dive into, what that looks like, what projected ROIs are, how all of that comes into your projections whenever you're calculating what your business should be bringing in the door every single month. So without further ado, guys, I want to bring in Mr. Brandon Bateman.
Hey.
Brandon, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. How you doing, Aaron?
Good, man. How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, we both got the red beard thing going on.
Yeah,
so
man.
Yeah. What are the chances?
It's summer season, man. But my barber, he's been in. He was just in Alaska for like 2 weeks, so I can't get back in touch with him, man. So I got to get to him at one point. But luckily, the shave game's still on point, right? So
nice. Happy to hear it.
All right, cool, man. So I want to kind of take it over to you, Brandon. So, I kind of touched on it a little bit. So, commonly, we're dealing with a lot of folks, that we're coaching in the industry around colder marketing channels like, cold call, SMS, RVM. And that's where a lot of people are, spending their time. So once again, I wanted to, bring you into the equation, present to our community around, what else is out there, right? We know there's so many marketing channels, but, what does your company have to offer? What do you guys see with, with digital marketing, and how do you talk about strategy, things like that?
Yep, absolutely. Let me jump into this and see if I can share my screen here, and I'll tell you all about it. I've spent a minute or two thinking about this. You see this the screen here? Yeah, it looks like it's working now. So first, just a little bit of information about me, so we all know who we're talking to. I live in Lehigh, Utah, if anybody knows where that is, just a little bit south of Salt Lake City. I grew up in Florida, so I enjoy the drier weather, the mountains, all that kind of stuff I don't have in Florida. I am married. I have a daughter. She just turned 1, so I'm kind of in that new stage of figuring out how to be a parent and all that kind of fun stuff. And then, a little bit more business focused. I'm personally just really passionate about using logic and data to make good decisions. And you'll probably notice that my perspective on marketing is what I would call data driven. And I think that's the right way to do it personally. And I hope that kind of rubs off on everybody a little bit as we're going through this. So just a little bit of information about Bateman Collective and what we do. So like Aaron mentioned, we're in the motivated seller game. So we specialize exclusively in motivated seller lead generation. I believe there's a lot of value there. Aaron talked about some of these lesser used channels that add a lot of value. Here they are. This is kind of what we focus on. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do. I'm just trying to boil this down to like the most simple part of when it comes to finding motivated sellers on the internet. Most of it comes down to one of these 3 channels, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. Many of you have probably heard a thing or two about PPC, SEO, Facebook ads. We can dive into that a little bit more. And this is just like a humble brag, something I think is awesome about our company. The metric we hold everybody accountable to is we average about 96% client retention. What this means is that 96% of our clients choose to continue working with us month over month. And I think it just reflects the quality of work that we do and the results that our clients are getting. Some overall numbers, just to give you a taste of what you can do with digital marketing. This year, we're on track to spend about $9 million in advertising through these channels. Our ads are on track to be seen over 118 million times across the United States, Canada, and Australia. It's expected to generate over 72,000 leads, which generates over 2,400 deals for more than $50 million in revenue generated from our marketing. The majority of that coming from a lot of our clients are primarily wholesale and flip a little bit. We have some 100% flippers, and then some 100% wholesalers. But that's kind of that's what digital marketing can do, and that's why I think those numbers are really valuable. And just another thing to kind of drive home the value of digital marketing. I wanted to tell you a little bit of a story from one of our clients. So this house is in Rhode Island. It's on the water. I know you can't really tell that from the picture here, and it's pretty much what everybody would consider like a prime driving for dollars house. They had like utilities shut off. Someone was still living in the house, just in the dark and with no water. There's lots of repairs that need to be made, and there was some tax event coming up. I can't remember exactly what it is, but anyways, it's like your very typical driving for dollars list. Something that made it really interesting on top of that is this house for my client that I had in this area. This house was like within their neighborhood, or very close to them. They would drive by it pretty often, and they really liked the location. And because of that, they were actually really interested in getting this house. So they sent mail to the home more aggressively than they usually would to the Driving for Dollars campaign. They cold called, they texted, they even door knocked several times, just trying to get a hold of the seller. This all over the course of many, many months. And then one day, someone reached out to them and they said, my friend has this property that's in pretty rough shape, and they need help. Can you help? And they said, sure. Let's meet them at the property. And when they got there, they realized this is the house. This is the house that they were trying to get in touch with. And what they ended up finding was that they could make it work, and they helped the person who was living there. They ended up actually tearing down the house, and they're currently building their primary residence on the lot. So I think that's kind of cool that one of our leads is turned into the home for one of our husband and wife, business owner couples that we work with. And I think it's really interesting because, like I said, they cold called, they texted, all of these different things. They even door knocked, so many different levels that you could say are significantly more aggressive than what you typically deal with. But the reality is that they weren't able to get a hold of the seller. And then this house came in through a PPC lead through one of the friends. And that's kind of the power of digital marketing. A lot of this is based on a whole different type of finding leads than what many of you are probably doing. And it's really powerful because there are people who are going to find the company that they sell their house to online. And the reality is a lot of those are different from the people who are going to sell other ways. And we like to think that in whatever marketing channel we're using, we're getting all of the volume that exists in the market. But the reality is there are plenty of houses just like that one that are not going to be sold to someone through these traditional marketing means. And instead, somehow, some way, they're going to find the person that they sell their house to online. So here's what I had planned for the agenda for today. We're going to talk about some of the differences between different digital marketing channels. I want to peel back the curtain a little bit, give you some of our most effective strategies and what's been working for us. Talk about lead management and how that's a little bit different with digital marketing than some of the other stuff you might do. And then what does it look like, the path from starting out to getting success? So first, kind of outlining how this works, different channels. I kind of have two variables on this graph here. The first one is return on investment. Everybody knows what that is. Everybody cares about that, probably more than anything else. The reality is there's another thing that really matters, sometimes as much as return on investment, and that is lead conversion rate. And the reason lead conversion rate really matters is because as you're further left on this graph, meaning you have a lot of leads required to get to a deal, your marketing expenses are lower, but your operational expenses are higher because dealing with a lot of leads costs money, it costs time, it costs focus. And that's why we generally find is that the more inbound the marketing channel is, the more expensive it tends to be. And if you look at companies that rely primarily on inbound marketing sources, they generally have lower operational expenses, but they have higher marketing expenses. And then if you look at companies that rely really heavily on outbound channels, they tend to have pretty high operational costs associated with the business, but lower marketing costs. And this graph kind of shows that relationship. Just to look at a few different channels, like cold call and text is going to be your traditional like higher return on investment channel. Of course, this is like a generality, right? This is not absolute. Some companies just can't make cold call work at all, and it's horrible. Other times it can be a really high return thing. Some of it depends on how you're doing it and also the level of volume that you're doing. But in general, these outbound channels like cold call, SMS, they're going to have a really high return on investment. And that's why they're really good starting out, because they're a way to get deals without investing a ton of money. The further right we go here, the more our time starts to be saved. And it's a little bit more like you're making your money work for you instead of your time. That's where Facebook ads would be a step in that direction. You're going to deal with a higher quality lead than what you would get through cold call or text. But at the same time, you're also going to usually get a little bit of a lower return on investment because of that. Direct mail, you could say, is a little bit further this direction. The leads are a little bit higher quality. They're calling you. And of course, you get that taking off your list stuff. But the reality is there's a lot of good direct mail leads out there. Google PPC, this is going to fall farther to the right here because this is a whole different level. Think with all these other channels, with cold call or text, you're reaching out to the seller. That's how you find them. And you just straight up call them or text them. With Facebook ads, you're like putting an ad out there, and then they have to actually take action and say, yes, I do want to talk to you. You started the interaction technically, right? You still put the ad in front of them, but they responded. And it's kind of easy to respond with Facebook ads. With direct mail, it's a little bit harder to pick up the phone and call someone. And it's a little bit more of a qualified lead because of that. But it's still, you went to them and then they decided to call you. And then if we get to PPC, this is where things get a little bit different. All the leads that fall into this range over here, PPC and SEO leads, the interaction doesn't start with you going to the seller. The interaction starts with the seller coming to you. So you will be on, for example, a search engine like Google. Someone goes with an intent to search online and find you, and then they come to you, which is completely inbound. It's a completely different type of lead. And it's really interesting because the type of seller is just completely different. The reason the lead conversion rate is so much higher is because you're not chasing down people quite as much. They're coming to you. And it's just a different kind of conversation overall. So that's the difference between all these things. Google PPC and SEO kind of fall over here. Notice SEO doesn't follow the trend that the rest of these channels do, where they're getting a little bit lower return on investment. SEO is kind of an outlier channel, which is one thing that I think makes it really interesting. So it's definitely something to keep in mind as you're looking at different channels. SEO is, for many of our clients, the highest ROI channel in their business, but it has other disadvantages that we can talk about. So that's the common direct to seller marketing channels and how I see these digital channels kind of fitting into things with a framework. If you're not familiar with like what is this stuff, right? I don't want to confuse anybody with the word like PPC. This is an example of a Google search. You might search on Google, sell my house fast. This shows intent. And it turns out what you type into Google is really predictive of what you're actually going to do. So many people that search this into Google end up selling their house. So there's these things with a little ad symbol next to them. These are all PPC ads. PPC stands for pay-per-click. So you can see there's this company here, there's another one here, here, and here. Usually there's about 4, sometimes less, but 4 companies that show up at the top here. And all of these companies are capable of getting clicks. The way that you get here is that you pay for the clicks. So that a lot of people don't understand is that being here is actually, it doesn't cost any money. All of these companies on this search, when we did the search, we didn't click any of the ads. None of them paid to show up there. But if I click on this company right here, then that means that they're going to be charged money for me making that click. Therefore, it is pay-per-click advertising. It's a pay-to-play game. You pay money, you go at the top. And that's at the very, very top because, of course, Google cares about monetization. Say we go a little bit further, this is where we get into the realm of SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. This is where there's the Google Map Pack. where they show a couple companies on a map. They might show you along with your reviews and a little bit of information about your business here. And this, the way that you get here isn't through paying Google. You can't pay Google enough money to show up in this map pack. What you do is you convince Google that you're actually what someone's looking for. You think, why does Google exist? Google exists to find people the answers to their questions. So therefore, if you can convince Google that you are the answer to that question, then you show up there. Notice in this last one, Sell My House Fast, about 1.8 billion search results. So SEO is kind of an interesting game, right? Because it's not just about being relevant. Google is basically saying here they officially have 1.8 billion pages on the internet that are relevant to the search. So why does one company show up here and another company doesn't? That's the game of SEO. It's how well are you optimized for the search engine? How good of a job are you doing at convincing Google that you are relevant to what someone's searching for and that you're also authoritative? And they can basically feel comfortable giving their business to you. And then down here, this is also SEO. You can see these are the actual like Google search engine results page listings. And you can see that there's basically one for each company. And again, it's the same game. Those that are more relevant will show up higher. Those that are less relevant will show up lower. And the game of SEO is basically being what Google needs you to be to get there. And we don't have a ton of time in the presentation, at least, to dig a ton into that. But the concept, I think, is fair. So what we talked before, if we looked at this graph, we talked about how SEO is kind of a weird outlier. Why is it all the way up here in the upper right-hand corner, and it doesn't follow this linear trend that everything else seems to follow? The reason is because there's kind of a third variable. All these other channels are more immediate. So you work with cold call and text, you call someone, I mean, yeah, it might take some time for the lead to close or whatever the case is, but the point is your calls today produce something. It's kind of the same with all these other channels, right? You're doing things, and of course, a lot of these get better over time, and you do get stuff that closes later and stuff like that, but the reality is you also usually get some level of immediate gratification. SEO is a little bit different, so it takes a lot of time. If we look at how that trends over time, this is just a case study with our client here in Utah. We've been working with them for about 4 years now, and this shows their trend of SEO versus PPC. You can see the golden line here is PPC, and the blue line here is SEO. This is true for most of our clients. If you look at year one, PPC outperforms SEO almost always, unless you're a little bit lucky with SEO or you have some existing traction or something like that. And the reason is it's a more immediate marketing channel. You just pay Google and you get up there. But SEO it's a time and consistency game. The more you're doing SEO, the better it works. By year two, this company is already doing better with SEO than PPC. And by year three, even better. And by year four, even better, to the point that they're at about 19x ROI on SEO compared to about 5.3x on PPC. And SEO, even measuring ROI is a little tricky, right? Because maybe some of the deals they get this year are from work that they did year one, because that's the way that SEO works. It's not like you put money in the vending machine and you get money out. It's that you like buy the vending machine, practically, is how it works. So you're building the vending machine, and you're basically building this machine that produces leads on a monthly basis without requiring any ad spend. It's just your website naturally getting those leads. And of course, doing the work to make that happen does cost money. But it's a little bit of a different game. So when you're looking at search marketing, a lot of people love search marketing because it is generally some of the most motivated leads that you can get. They close more quickly. They look for you, not you for them, and that makes a world of difference. But when you're looking at that game, just know this is kind of what you're dealing with SEO or PPC. If you're looking long term, SEO is a great play. If you're looking short term, PPC can be great. And PPC can be great in the long term too. It's not like we're cutting PPC because it's not performing as well. In this case, we can actually spend more on PPC, and the revenue from each of these channels is actually really similar for this client. They just spend a lot less to get there with SEO. But I'd say anything you can do at a profit is a good thing to do. And then the only other one that we haven't touched on quite as much is Facebook ads. And I don't have quite as much information here, but Facebook ads are basically those sponsored posts that you see on Facebook. Turns out you can target motivated sellers with those posts. A lot of motivated sellers are spending their time on Facebook. A lot of people think Facebook ads don't work in this industry. And last year is actually a higher return on average than PPC across our clients. This year, a little bit of a different story because Facebook has been getting more expensive, but it's still a really good channel. And for many of our clients, it is their best performer, but it's a little bit more comparable to PPC on average. And I think Facebook is a little bit more friendly to smaller budgets. So definitely something to keep in mind. It's lower quality leads at a lower cost, and that's kind of the game with Facebook ads. You're dealing with usually about half the lead cost. So the question is it going to be more or less than half the lead? You're dealing with half the lead quality. The question is it going to be more or less than half of the lead cost or not? So if you get a really low lead cost with Facebook ads, then you can definitely produce a lot of results at a reasonable cost with a good ROI. If it's really expensive, like I'd say a Facebook lead that costs $250 compared to a PPC lead that costs the same, PPC is going to be better. But this is a really good channel. Compared to paid search, Facebook ads is much less competitive, and the sellers are a little bit less motivated. So there's kind of opposing forces there. On one hand, you're dealing with these sellers that are a little bit less motivated. They didn't come to you in the first place. But at the same time, they're probably not talking to 5 other people. And in PPC, it's not uncommon that they are. If we look back at this page, we got a whole page of businesses to reach out to here, and many will reach out to many of those businesses. So you kind of have to be at the very top of your game to succeed with PPC and SEO. Facebook ads is a little bit more forgiving. So that's it for that section. Just talking about like what are these channels overall. Aaron, do we want to do some questions along the way at all, or are we just going through the presentation first and then add some questions?
Yeah, I mean, we can go through the entire presentation, but before we kind of dig into that, I actually had a couple questions for you. So is there any way that you can kind of highlight on some of your client success stories with, the stats of what you kind of just mentioned? I know that you mentioned like over 4 years, you're going to see roughly a 20x ROI on PPC, right? So can you kind of talk through some of the pain points, right? Because what I see commonly is that, somebody tests a marketing channel for, and I'm sure you see it too, right? They test it for 1 month, 2 months. We don't see the instantaneous results. And then we want to try something different. So I guess, can you talk through the strategy of, why is it so important to be consistent with that? What makes it so important to, stay consistent over that 4-year span to get to that projected ROI? And why do we see that?
Yeah, good question. I'm actually a little bit later in the presentation, I will share a little bit more data about like that particular thing. But I can answer a little bit more briefly now. In my opinion, that is the biggest mistake that people make in general with digital marketing and their markets. I have honestly, I don't know that I've found a market that we couldn't make this stuff work. And there's always different levels of working. Sometimes there's a really high return. Sometimes there's a smaller return. But the point is, it always works on some level. A lot of people that I hear say that it doesn't work for them. Either they have a strategy issue, like they're just not doing it super well, and that's why I'm going to talk about some of our more effective strategies and why that's important. If they are on the right path, it's so common that they just haven't given it enough time. For me, it's more of a factor of how long do you give it, and that's for how likely it is to work than it is your market. So sometimes it hits quick, and that's kind of, I think, a little bit of a plague that goes through this industry. I love it and hate it. We have our clients posting online all the time saying like, I just started with this company and I've got 2 deals and it's only been 3 days, and look at all this revenue coming in, they're the best, all this kind of stuff. And this stuff comes out like it seems like almost weekly. We have a client like making these claims and stuff because we onboard at least a few every week, and sometimes they hit success pretty early. But it makes everybody think like that's what it's supposed to look like. The reality is those are outliers. So it usually takes longer, and it can take longer. Just the fact that it doesn't hit right away doesn't mean that it's not working. We basically find that the first 3 months or so of the campaign, for better or worse, are usually not indicative of if the campaign is going to be successful long-term at all. There's a slight correlation, but it's depending on what metrics we're seeing on our side, it could be going better or worse. And that's where it's important to just work with an expert that can kind of shoot straight and just tell you where you are and just make sure you're following the process. But time absolutely matters, and it's not like it can't be quick, but if you're counting on it being quick, you're basically counting on luck. It's like going to a slot machine and just saying you're going to make money there. And some people will leave that casino with more money than they went in, with, but that's not, I don't think that's a repeatable process. And we try to focus on what is a repeatable path to success for our clients. Does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yeah, 100%. I think whenever you highlight on strategy, I think it'll talk a lot about that as well. And I don't know if we want to wait on. I have another question because I have a firm belief in the market, and I'm sure you get this question a lot because I'm sure you have a very diverse people of what you work with too, right? So the age old question of going wide or going deep into a market, right? And where do we see the difference? Here what we believe in and where we have all of our success in the markets that we're in, is we believe in going deep. So I guess based off of the data of what you just shared right there, what do you see as a difference between because I know there's people that are out there, right? I've had a lot of conversations with people that have had crazy success in going wide. And I think there's other components that go into that, like their dispo factors and how much they have to work on their dispo strategy versus acquisitions at that point. But what do you see as far as people being successful, between going wide and going deep into a market based off of digital marketing strategies?
Yeah, excellent question there, and I am actually not going to touch on that in the presentation, so I'm glad you asked it because this is, I think, a really good question. And yeah, it's like a holy war, right? I mean, the reality is, I think you can be successful either way. I know at the core of your business, Aaron, is a lot of those outbound strategies like cold calling, SMS. And my belief is with those strategies, going deep is the way to go. So I see why you found success that way. I think what you're going to find is a lot of companies that are really successful with digital marketing, they go wide. And the reason isn't that wide is better than deep. Think about it this way. If you go wide geographically, it allows you to go deep different ways. Deep in a particular channel. It allows you, like within PPC, there's always like these really great price click opportunities that come along. And if you're just in one market, you have to buy those and you have to buy other stuff as well. Picture it like you're a flipper that buys from wholesalers. Let's just say I'm a flipper that needs to buy from wholesalers, and I'm here in Salt Lake City, and I need to buy 300 deals a year in Salt Lake City. There's going to be some smoking deals that come through, but the reality is I'm going to have to buy like almost everything I see because I can't find 300 properties that are all super deep discounts, super easily buying from different wholesalers here. Versus, let's just say I need to buy 3 flips this year. There's a good chance I can choose just the right opportunities and I can buy them deeper. And that's kind of how it works with digital marketing. The fact that we go wider allows us to go deeper into just the exact kind of clicks that we want to purchase. And that's why we find that there's an inverse relationship between locations and the number of leads that our clients get. The wider they go geographically, the more leads they will get, almost always. That's where we have some clients that even target nationwide with their ads. We have some clients that target regional, some that target statewide, some that target a single market. And the reality is you can have success on all those different levels. But the wider you go, usually the lower your cost per lead is. And additionally, the higher your potential scale is. So that's where if you're going to push your business really far with just digital marketing, like many of our clients have, where they rely pretty heavily on it, a lot of those companies choose to go deep into a marketing channel and the processes associated with that. And then they choose to go wider on locations. Does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great response to that. Yeah, I mean that hit it right on the head. So, yeah, I mean if you kind of want to roll into I know that I kind of just threw you off there a little bit with two big questions, but I know that those are some of the biggest questions that I get commonly. And it helps to hear from somebody that does it in the day to day. Giving some good answers and some good feedback. So, yeah, man, if we want to roll straight into some strategy, I mean I'm excited to hear and I'm excited to learn and take some new takeaways from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking the questions, Aaron. Feel free to interrupt me whenever you want, because the reality is like, this is about the people listening, right? It's like,
yep.
I don't care about my presentation. We gotta get to the important information.
Yep.
This is just what I was thinking about. So anyways, let's move forward a little bit and then let's revisit and see if you have any questions. Let's talk about some of the different effective strategies. First, this is a disclaimer. This is why, for most investors, I think working with an agency makes sense. And you probably, I understand the position I'm coming from here, owning an agency, and how that probably sounds super biased. But the reality of this is I own an agency for a reason. I saw an opportunity, and I believe that this is actually a better way for people to work. I truly believe that. And I'm going to show you just like some of those numbers of why I believe that. And the reason I'm sharing this is a lot of people are thinking like, how can I learn these strategies to, to go do this on my own? And fortunate or unfortunate truth, however you think about it, is when I share with you our most effective strategies, the reason they're most effective is because people can't do them on their own. And that's why we have so much success with it, because you can kind of build a moat around that. It's not exactly a level playing field when it comes to digital marketing. So we'll dig into that a little bit, but I just wanted to share some numbers here. So this is scenario one here, just an example company. Let's just say this is a company that maybe this is a little extreme. I basically said they're paying $0 to manage this. In any circumstance, if you're going to do this yourself or you work with another agency, like you're going to be paying something from like an opportunity or time cost perspective, or maybe another agency is going to cost you money. But let's just say it's $0, right? This is completely free. You have ad spend of $10,000 a month. That's what you're spending on PPC, for example. This company, let's just say their cost per deal was $4,000. They would end up with about $62,500 in revenue every month. Just as an example, their net marketing margin, so this is basically all of their revenue minus their ad spend, would be basically $52,500. So this is what they would be kind of contributing to the other parts of the company coming out of marketing. So if we look at scenario two, this is another example company. Notice there's a lot of things similar here. Let's just say this company also spent $10,000. Let's say instead of paying $0, they were paying $2,700. So now they're paying this management fee to a company like ours, and that's more expensive. But let's just say that got them to $3,800 cost per deal instead of $4,000 cost per deal. Now their revenue would be $65,200, so a little bit higher than it would have been otherwise. And their net marketing margin, here it is again, $52,500. So the reason I think this is really important is if we look at this, you could say that performance in this scenario comes down to the cost per deal, right? However, the really interesting thing here is the difference between these cost per deals of scenario two versus scenario one, it's about 4.1%. So this is why I believe for most investors, it makes sense to work with an agency, because you just have to think, if someone is doing this all day, every day, and they have a whole system built around it, and they're really good at this, could they do 4% better than me? And the answer is usually yes. I mean, there's people who are more inclined to manage PPC well, and those that are less inclined. There's companies that are better and companies that are worse, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's not exactly like an apples to apples comparison. But the point that I'm trying to drive home here is that management fees are largely irrelevant in the grand context of the marketing campaign. The thing that matters the most is the performance of the campaigns, because you can have a very small, like a 4% improvement in your actual performance, the ads completely offset a big difference in the cost of management. And that's why I think this industry, because of the high margins you deal with, is an industry where it definitely makes sense to work with an expert on this kind of stuff. Just to give you some examples of how you could bridge that 4.1%. Your landing page conversion rate could increase from 10% to 10.4%. This is like the percentage of people that when they visit your website, they end up filling out a form. Could a company that has done tons of split testing and understands how to improve conversion rate on websites get your conversion rate to go from 10% to 10.4%? The answer is usually yes. You could have your lead qualification rate go from 50% to 52%. This means that you just get just a slightly higher lead quality. That can completely cover the cost of working with a good partner on this. You could bring your cost to get a click from $45 to $43.16. I'm showing you this just because like any one of these things alone would completely cover the cost of the company that you work with. This is why like we put so much focus on performance of everything, because even minor changes in performance produce major differences in business outcomes. And that's where we're really, really focused on that. So let's just look at a few different unique strategies that we use. And this is the stuff that just completely changes the game in my experience. And I'm going to dig into each of these a little bit more. There's some recruiting takeaways and shared learnings there. Closed loop optimization, we'll talk about what that is and everything, and also aggregate testing. Recruiting and shared learnings. This is sort of interesting. The people that manage our campaigns, to give you just an example, We are basically like, if they're not, we go to agencies that have 100 plus people in them, agencies that are doing all this kind of digital marketing stuff for various different companies. We basically require that whoever's at that company prove to us that they're in the top 5% of the 100 plus people in the company from a performance basis. And that's the only people that we recruit for like the overall like managing the product and stuff like that. And I think that's really interesting, because when you do that, and then you also give those people this aggregated data, you create really strong shared learnings. And we have talent that we're basically using for clients that you just will never be able to afford otherwise, because the top 5% of people in this industry are not cheap at all, because they're used to managing millions and millions of dollars of ad spend and being in high leverage scenarios where they're very valuable. So anyways, this is like probably the biggest thing that's made an impact for us. And I know it's not directly applicable to you at this moment if you're trying to do that, but I guess that's my case for saying that you need to make this work somehow. If you have tons and tons of ad spend, then you can make this work potentially. But usually companies need to have a lot to make that happen. And when I say a lot, I don't mean $100,000. I mean like $1 million in a month is where I see that companies kind of make the jump. This next one I think is really interesting. Closed loop optimization. This has been the single biggest. This in conjunction with some other things that I'd say are like byproducts of this, have been the single biggest thing that made the difference for our clients. The way that it works, like 99% of the companies managing PPC, 99% of the people managing their own PPC campaigns, the way that it works is PPC, you do all these different keywords, you have all these different ads, you have all these different ad groups and demographics and affinity audiences and blah, 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 you have all that stuff. And then it produces leads. And down to like a search term level what someone searched when they became a lead and what audiences they're a part of and all that kind of stuff. You know exactly what's producing those leads, so you can optimize that to get more leads. And then they know in their business, these leads turned into deals. And these leads were qualified and these ones were bad because of these reasons, etc. What almost nobody does is track everything completely closed loop. And that means this marketing activity generated this lead, which was bad quality, or which was good quality, or this keyword produces leads that tend to have a 20% higher qualification rate than that other keyword, or this other keyword produces deals that are bigger because the properties tend to skew towards this type, or whatever the case is. And this is so valuable, because the reality is every lead that you get is different. I don't think any salesperson would say that all leads are created equal. Leads are different. That's just part of the game. And believe it or not, there's trends in that. And it's not like there's some advertising nirvana where you just get rid of all your bad leads and you only have good ones. You can get close. You probably won't get all the way there, but there's trends, and it actually creates optimization. So this is one thing that I think every PPC or Facebook ads campaign needs in it, is this closed loop optimization. You need to have this tracking available straight from the beginning all the way down to the end result that you care about. That's how you make campaigns better. There's optimization potential along with that, which basically means things will get more dialed in than otherwise they could be. There's superior communication and strategy. The way a lot of agencies work is they communicate with their clients and they say, well, how are the leads? And the client says, well, the leads are good here and this one wasn't good, and all this kind of stuff, but they're not getting down to the details of which things are producing which leads. From a communication standpoint, between those like clicking the buttons in the background all the way to those that are dealing with the leads, this kind of ties things together. And it's also super valuable for benchmarking. It's really valuable to look at your business and say that my lead to appointment rate is low, and that's a sign that we could have one of these issues. Or to say that our appointment to contract rate is low, and that could create these different issues, or whatever the case is. And without those benchmarks, it's really hard to tell how your company is stacking up. So we find that doing this kind of optimization and providing this data basically allows our clients to do significantly better at optimizing their business, even on the sales side. And then this last thing here is aggregate split testing. So an example here is landing page CRO. If you're not familiar with CRO, it stands for conversion rate optimization. It's this whole, believe it or not, industry within digital marketing. And it's the whole concept of basically split testing websites. What CRO experts tend to do is you take website variant A and website variant B, and you basically run them simultaneously, and you see, for each X people that they get on each one, how many people actually turn into a lead. And then you learn basically how should the website look in order to get those right people through. It's extremely powerful and allows you to increase conversion rates. And just like we talked about before, like for example, if your website conversion rate could go from 10% to 10.4%, that could be worth $2,700 a month to the company. That can make a really big deal, especially if you're spending more, the leverage gets even higher. Here's the really tough thing about this industry. With the number of leads that most companies get, running these landing page split tests can take more than a year to get quality data. This is why companies just don't do this in this industry. You probably never heard of CRO, even though it's a huge pillar of digital marketing in most industries, because it's just not feasible. It's not practical. You're going to take several years to actually know that landing page A worked better than landing page B in most scenarios, especially if you're getting deeper into the funnel and you're looking at how the landing pages are affecting lead quality, which anytime you get deeper in the funnel, you need more data. You need a larger sample size to make it work. But then picture this, like, for example, from our scenario where we're coming from, we accelerate this process because we have, like, maybe one of our clients doesn't have enough data to make this happen, but overall, we get 100,000 monthly visitors across all of our clients. What that allows us to do is basically on hundreds of different landing pages at a time, test if we make this one change, does it improve conversion rate or not? And then we can do a split test in 2 weeks that would take you 2 years. And the reason that's incredibly valuable is that, like I said, just those smallest changes make a really big difference. And for all of your marketing, I just highly encourage that you adopt this rule that we have as a company internally. And it's that not a single dollar is spent on something that's not a split test. That's a rule that we have for all of our employees. You will not be running any money that's not on some type of test. And there's different levels of tests, right? You could be testing all kinds of different things, like landing pages or ads or different keywords against each other, negative keywords, search terms, and like, the list goes on and on. But the reality is it should be all on a split test. And over 99% of our budget that we've spent since starting as a company has helped that rule, with just a few small exceptions. So this is something that I highly encourage you to have from like a mindset standpoint that really pushes the results farther. So the reason I'm sharing this is like, yeah, we can talk about the things that like we're running these split tests and stuff, but it's the process that matters, right? It's not just like where the campaigns are at. It's also where are they going and how fast are they going there. And all the companies that are going to do the best with digital marketing, they're going to have this really strong split testing component to them, because that's the only way to really know what's working better than other things. And when you have this belief that even small changes create big results, it becomes really worth it. And this is why I don't recommend that people run their own PPC, just because we might be able to do 50 times the number of split tests that someone else can, and that creates a lot of value. So that's kind of the peek behind the curtain of what we're doing there, from like what's actually producing the results for our clients and what are those processes. Do you have any questions about that one, Aaron?
Yeah, so I don't really have a question. It's more of a statement. There's something that you mentioned, and it was around, the agency concept. So something that, I preach and I preach and I preach and I preach over and over and over again is I'm all about maximizing time in the day, right? And commonly, we have within our community, we have people that run around with like chickens with their head cut off, right? And they're doing 1,000 things, and whether it's they're managing their own digital marketing, they're managing this marketing, they're managing an acquisitions team, they're managing a dispo team. Something that you mentioned around like what an agency can do, even if it's that small management fee, right? To me, it takes so much time, out of the day. So I mean, even if you wanted to kind of highlight one more time, like once again, it's something that I talk until I'm blue in the face about, of how do I remove people out of seats to level up in the business. So I guess you can probably talk better than anybody. How much time do you think people, if they're managing their own digital marketing in their own business, like how much time do you think they're spending in their day?
If you're doing it right, it's going to be a really heavy upfront investment. Most likely, you spend a couple, maybe I don't know, because like there's the building of the skills. The building of the skills is really important. So it's like if you have all the skills and you know what to do, it wouldn't take as long as it would to learn all the skills and do those things. But let's just say you already do everything that you wanted to do. You're probably looking at a week to set it up and then several hours a week to manage it. If you don't, then I mean, you're talking like people dedicate their lives to this, right? This isn't one of those scenarios where like you could do it well, but give it to someone else and they'll do it 70% as well. It's like, it's like you'll do it 70% as well. Give it to someone else and they'll do it 100%. That's kind of the scenario here. Unless unless you're gonna like dedicate your life to being an expert at PPC, which that's your passion and that's your passion. But I don't think most of the people that's their passion.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of break it down in this way, right? We usually split people up. Like you have your one-man shows, you have your two-way partnerships, things like that. And sometimes the name of the game is the second person in a partnership is the marketing guru. But once again, I talk about time efficiency and what else can you be doing with your time other than delegating it out to somebody that knows how to do everything and can do it very efficiently. So that was just one thing that you mentioned that really stuck with me, and I really wanted to make sure I highlighted before we moved on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that. So I'm going to dig into to lead management a little bit. I'd love to hear your context on this, Aaron, because obviously I'm not an acquisitions manager or anything. Right?
Yep.
We have a process for this for finding insights, and I'm more than happy to kind of share with you what we found. But I wanted to start with like a case study, just talk about an experience we had with the client. So here's some context about this company. They operate in a major market. Can't say there's one, but it's definitely one of the biggest markets. They are, it's not like this is just like some guy that doesn't know what they're doing, right? This is a legitimate company. They're consistently grossing $300,000 to $500,000 per month worth of wholesales in their market. So they're doing they're closing stuff, right? They have an acquisitions team that's functioning well and everything like that. They're primarily driven by cold calling, and they get a lot of cold call leads, and their team closes them really well, and they have a 10x return on cold call. They do extremely well with that. So I wanted to dig into a situation that we had with this company. We spent 4 months marketing with them. We spent $40,000. We generated about 120 leads, and they had literally 0 deals and 0 revenue. At this point, this company came to me and they're just like, look, we don't have, like, our team's not a problem. Our team closes $500,000 worth of deals every single month. We're not the issue, it's the leads. These leads aren't good. And that's why we're not closing anything. Can't believe we just spent 40 grand for nothing. So then we had a talk just based on some of these principles of what's working for our different clients. The following 4 to 8 months, they spent $40,000 yet again. They had about 120 leads. This time they had 17 deals from those leads for over $500,000 in revenue. And we didn't make any adjustments that would affect the lead quality during this time period. So the reason I wanted to share this case study is this is a company that thinks they have it together, right? And the reality is they do have it together for cold call, but digital marketing leads, they're a different game. And this is where they needed to coach their team on some of these things that were different. And they really needed to adapt as a company. And so many companies, like, we do a lot of audits. Like, we have people coming to us with digital marketing campaigns that aren't working, and they're asking us how we can make it better. And it's actually a really common scenario that I look at. I'm like, you know what? This can be better. We could probably make this like 20% better. But the reality is you need this to be 200% better if it's going to work for you. And the place that things are falling off is in the acquisitions process. And it's not going to work unless you can fix your team around this. So to give you a little bit of concept of like how we're building these insights. So our clients all report to us their deals. That's a closed loop reporting system that I was telling you about. We use this data to identify who are the high performers and who are the low performers. We identify a high performer as the top 10% of lead conversion, a low performer meaning they're the bottom 50% of lead conversion. For a given channel and keyword, it's all benchmarked against the expected lead quality. The next thing, we interview those clients and their teams, and we write down everything that they do. And then this last part's important. We basically take insights, not just from the things that like this company's good at this, and therefore we're going to take this insight from them. And these are the things that they do. We look for the things that all of our high performers almost always do, and that all of our low performers almost never do consistently. So we're looking for what is the differential, those that are doing well versus those that aren't doing well. What are they doing different? And that's where we got these insights. So like I said, I'm not a master acquisitions person. I've never been in a seller's living room negotiating with them. This is more like process oriented stuff. But it's some of the core differences, and a lot of people that we work with at first aren't doing things like this. And as they shift, they tend to do a little bit better with these particular types of leads. And it's not crazy stuff. I like this quote from Alex Mosey. He says, "Advanced people are advanced because they never don't do the basics." And that's really these principles are super basic. Like there's nothing completely mind blowing here. But the reality is, our clients that are doing well, they actually do the things, and our clients that aren't doing well, they're not doing these things. And sometimes I think they are until they look at their team and they realize they're not. But I guess this is my point. It's just make sure you're always doing the basics. So these are the 3 principles of lead management. Now that we have that horribly long lead up. The first one here, urgency. With digital leads, this is just so much more important than it is with any of your other marketing channels. Our best clients tend to get to leads within 60 seconds, meaning that lead comes in and they're getting to it right away. I have a client I showed you the case study from earlier that's here in Utah. I've been working with them for 4 years. If you go to their office, you can see their acquisitions agents. They have their phone like in a holster. They don't even put it in their pocket because they're ready to compete every time a lead comes in because they want to make sure that they're first. It's like a quick draw scenario. So urgency is super important. This goes all the way through the funnel. It's just like it's a whole mindset. It's how are you managing these leads? It's not uncommon with a PPC lead to set an appointment for tomorrow, and by the time you get there, it's already under contract. It's all about making things happen as fast as you can. The second thing, by the way, this is the place where that client that I showed you that went from 0 deals to 17 deals in 4 to 8 months. This is what they were getting wrong for the most part, and it's a concept of assuming motivation. There's this general context, like the way that a lot of acquisitions teams work is they assume that the leads aren't good until they can prove that the leads are good. And that's kind of baked into them. And that's honestly how you have to do things with outbound channels, for example, because otherwise you'll just waste all your time. However, it's kind of reverse for our clients that are doing really well with digital marketing. They assume when a lead comes in, they assume this is a smoking hot lead. And until it can absolutely be proven otherwise, they're just going to assume that. It's kind of like picture that guy that keeps on going to Vegas and losing money, and he just thinks like this next time I roll, this is where I'm going to make all my money back. He's just completely delirious gambler. This is like that's like our acquisitions teams. Like every time a lead comes in, the reality is there's a 90% chance that lead's not good. But they don't think that way. They think this is that one lead. This is going to be the big one. And they absolutely believe that. And even after they've called the person 10 times, they haven't answered the phone, they still believe this is the lead. And sometimes just on that 11th call, that's when it becomes an appointment, and that's when it becomes a contract. So they assume that there's motivation in the leads and basically treat everything accordingly. And what's really easy with digital marketing leads is to basically, like the leads hold their cards a little bit closer, right? You have to think of how they're generated. They're coming to you, they're maybe a little bit wary of the situation and everything like that. You just have to assume that the leads are motivated. And it is so much better to go on 5 appointments and waste your time than it is to miss out going on 1 appointment that would have been a deal that you would have made $20,000 from. That's where assuming motivation is so important. And then this last one, quality first impressions. I know this is a little bit more general, but the data that we got this from is actually, we find that having leads go to an acquisitions manager increases the likelihood of conversion significantly compared to going to a lead manager with digital leads. Some of our clients still use lead managers and do okay. I guess it depends on the lead manager and everything like that. But the principle here is quality first impressions. The reality of it is, a lot of people think that like when you get that contract, when it's signed, that's when you won. In my opinion, you probably won within the first 20 seconds of the phone call when the person first called in, because people make emotional decisions. They often decide within the first little bit of knowing you, they get this emotional bias that I'm going to work with this person, or I trust this person, or this person's going to help find me the solution. And basically what happens is sellers will search. Like if they went to the internet, they have this pain. Pain causes action. They look for solutions. If all you do when they reach out to you is you set an appointment to solve their pain later, then what happens is they're going to continue searching. And someone else is going to make them feel like their pain's solved, even though it's not yet, because they're going to feel understood. And like the problem is absolutely going to be solved. And then they're going to go with that person, they're going to ghost you, and you're going to think it's not that good of a lead. This is something that we see with all of our clients that are doing really well. They have the kind of conversations when the person first calls in that aren't like trying to vet out the lead. They're just heavy on building rapport, and they learn about the problem. They give the person absolute surety that they're going to help them, and they give the person enough confidence that they don't feel the need to look other places. And in doing so, they destroy the competition. And that's one factor that's true for all of our teams that do exceptionally well. So that's what I have, Aaron, for lead management and our principles there. Any comments or questions on that?
Yeah, I guess I would be I'd be more curious. As acquisitions as my heart, right? I'd be curious, what do you see? Because and everything that we talk about is, there's obviously you have your industry standards with leads to contracts of what you can expect per marketing campaign. But you also have like an average days that, let's say that a lead is in your system before it actually becomes a contract. And that is radically, it's all over the board with each marketing campaign. So would you say it's safe to assume that, the example of what you gave around, over the course of, 1 to 4 months, they had no success, maintained their consistency and spend, but then got a predictable outcome based off how many days a lead was in the system before it became a contract? Is that something that you see commonly, or do you see any data behind? I know you're a data guy, right? So, do you see any data that supports what I just mentioned?
So when we track things back, we track when did the lead come in, not when was the contract signed. We track both, honestly, but like when I'm talking about that case study with that client, it's not like they closed all those deals in month 4 through 8. That came from the leads in month 0 through 4. They got no deals from any leads that came in month 0 through 4, even over time. But they got all those deals from leads that came in months 4 to 8. It's one interesting statistic. And this number varies a ton just by the age of the company. So that's where it's like, of course, this number is going to be way different for our clients that just started with us versus people that are working with us for 4 years. But it's very, very common. Like almost always, if we look at the number of days on average that it takes for a lead to close, it is lower with digital marketing leads than it is with any other channel that our clients are using. And the reason is, like, picture with a cold call lead, like, you're interacting with them, you're still following up, you find the right time and everything. And then at some point they say like, okay, yeah, I am looking at the right time. When someone's searching on Google, for example, like that's like them saying that they're there, right? They're starting at the end of the process. You're finding them like when they're ready to make a decision, not well before when they're ready to make a decision, which just means it's quicker. That doesn't mean you give up on follow-up, right? If your average time to close is like a week, then you probably just don't do very good job following up. You're giving up on leads too much, right? Like one thing that kind of shares the data would be, it's really normal that about 50% of the deals that our clients do get come within 30 to 60 days from when the lead comes in. And then the other 50% come in some type of more long-term follow-up. For our clients that have been working with us for 6 months, like that definitely skews towards the quicker thing because some of the longer ones haven't happened yet. But then over time, that's a pretty stable metric to count on.
Perfect. Yeah, I think to highlight once again on the concept of urgency. I think the fastest one that we have successfully locked up, and I think it was because we have a 3-call process, right, where we go through, qualification, process, offer, and then purchase agreement call. So we have a multiple calls that we do. I think that we had one locked up from a PPC lead in like I think under an hour, right? So within minutes of this thing coming in, it was a hot smoking lead, became a contract. I think it was like the fastest one we've ever had. So that was definitely a huge win, and it highlights on your urgency right there, right? So
oh yeah, they're ready to go sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
I was just talking to a client the other day. This client's in Fort Worth, and I noticed in their campaigns they got a couple phone calls. I'm like, oh, I think they're coming through the phone calls. They're like, well, actually, we closed both of those like on the first call. Like they answered the phone and closed them, and like there was never anything else. And those ones were both like there was like less than 1 hour to contract things.
That's awesome.
I thought it was funny because they had 2 phone calls and 2 contracts from phone calls.
You can't beat that, man. That's good leads of contract right there.
Yeah, that's unsustainable, I think is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's true.
But anyways, obviously better lucky than unlucky. But it's absolutely true. Like you'll get those people that are just like ready right now, and then there's some that take more time. But it skews towards the ready right now more so than any other channel for sure.
Perfect.
Yep. All right. Do we want to dig into this last thing real quick and then go through any final questions? What do you think
Yeah,
on time, Aaron? We can stop here and go to some other questions, or we can talk about some timing factors.
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the comments right now. So, I've been writing down some pretty good ones and kind of hitting them throughout the process.
Yep.
Some common things, I've asked people throughout the week of, some things that they would want to ask throughout here. So, that's kind of where I'm throwing these out from. So yeah, let's just kind of finish up and then, let's get you out of here, man.
Yep, fair enough. Well, let's look at this. So this is like the path to success. And I mentioned this a little bit before. I believe in doing it right and basing outcomes on sustainable patterns, not luck. So this is where you want to look at like not what got that one person there, but you want to look at what gets everybody there. And it's a little bit of a mindset shift. So this is what we tell our clients about, like how long is this going to take? Because people ask me all the time, how long does it take to work? And the reality is it varies a ton, but we do have a framework that is relatively correct. So you're going to launch a marketing strategy initially. The first time period, this is what I'd say is how long it takes to get the lead flow that you want, right? This is all about leading metrics. And it's true that for the vast majority of our clients, they can achieve the success in those leading metrics, meaning they have lead flow at the rate that they expect. And the lead quality looks approximately normal by month 3. By month 6, they achieve profit, and what that means is they actually are closing deals, making money. Assuming month 1 can be a mess, month 2 is a little better, month 3 you're finally a little more dialed in. You've got to be dialed in for a period of time in order to see what the result is. It's not like as soon as the campaigns start working at their full potential, that it's working really well and you have contracts, because maybe you've only had 2 leads under that scenario and you need 15 to get to a deal. So this is where a lot of our clients become profitable in the 3 to 6 month range, and then growth in the 6+ month range. This is where they're actually creating long-term better success. And a lot of our clients, the vast majority, have a better return on investment in the 6+ month range than they do at the 0 to 6 month range. One thing I like to say is shoot for the moon, but make sure you clear the fence. It's a little bit of a joke, but as an illustration here, let's just say this is like your progress. You're getting better and better and better. You want to shoot for the moon, but everybody sometimes has their eyes so much on the moon that they just slam into the fence and they don't actually make it to the moon. Clearing the fence is really important. This is why I say, if you're starting a digital marketing campaign, you've got to be ready. You've got to have 6 months of budget laid out, because the reality is if you're counting on clearing that fence by month 2, then you just might not be in a good situation. And a lot of people think, well, I'm trying to get to the moon, I should at least be able to clear the fence by month 2. But the reality is that it can take a little bit of time, and you need to give yourself the resources that you need. That's why I recommend 6 months. There's this funny story. There's an article that I read about Fidelity Investments. They studied their segments of customers and how their returns varied. So they basically looked like, what is the stock market return of a portfolio, and what is the situation of the person? And believe it or not, the highest performing customers were those that forgot they had an account and forgot the password and all that kind of stuff. That's the trend that they saw. And of course, this is stocks over marketing, but I think there's some truth to that the consistency is really, really important. And those that tend to be most consistent, they get the best results. These clients that have been working with us for 3 or 4 years, they have bad months, they have bad quarters, they have good years though. And that's the reality, is that if you buy and hold, things tend to work out. I have never seen an issue in marketing in this industry with the channels that we use that wasn't fixed with time. It's just the reality is it does take time. And if you cut things, like if you're just investing in stocks and then the moment it goes down, you cut it off right then yeah, you're going to fail because you cut it at the point of failure. But if you buy and hold consistently, then long-term you will have success. This is the mindset difference that I see. So our clients that don't do super well with this, they say something along the lines of, I'm going to test this and see if it works. But if it doesn't, or if it stops working, then I'll cut it to save money. Very money saving focused and very observant. We want to see if this works. Our high performing clients have this mindset. I'm going to do everything that I need to make this successful. And I'm going to do it so long that it would be unreasonable to not be successful. This is, in my opinion, the mindset of those that do exceptionally well with marketing. They don't think, I'm going to do this for a little bit and see if it works. They think, I'm going to do this for so long, so consistently, and I'm going to do everything in my power so well that it's just not even reasonable to assume that it's not going to work for me. they're all in on it, and it's that makes it perform. Then you're not just seeing like if it takes off or not, because the reality is a lot of times it doesn't. That doesn't mean that you're not going to find that success. There's some debate as to whether he actually said this or not, but in any case, Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. I'd amend that a little bit. I'd say compound marketing insights are the eighth wonder of the world. The reason I say that is if you are just constantly going in and then out, and you constantly do that, what happens is you don't have this compounding insight. Because every marketing campaign, in my opinion, has two purposes. Purpose number one is to generate results. Purpose number two is to learn something that will help you generate results better tomorrow. And if you're not taking advantage of number two, then you don't have this compound effect of all those marketing insights over time. A lot of the companies that are most successful with marketing, what they're relying on is that compound effect of those insights. And that's what I have for the presentation. If you have any more questions, Aaron, I'm more than happy to answer those.
No, man, I think you kind of hit on all the questions that I really had. I love the mindset. I'm a big advocate that, you can't even make a decision really in any of your marketing for at least at a minimum of 6 months. I love the mindset play of what you said right there. Even we got some, in the comments, we got, some pretty good advice. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, you dropped a bomb of knowledge, on us today. So, I guess my last question for you, man, is like, let's say that, I'm a big person that you say I want to cut the line. I don't want to have to figure out, digital marketing on myself. How can, the people that are seeing this, how can they reach you? How could they reach out to you if they wanted a hand in any type of marketing, anything like that? What can they do?
Yeah, good question. I think I have. Look at this. I got all the answers to your questions right here. This is where you find us. So if anybody's interested in working with us, there's someone on my team. His name is Noah Parks. Fun fact about him: he's literally been digital marketing longer than I've been alive. I was born in 1996, and that's the same year he launched his first e-commerce website. The guy's a whole wealth of knowledge. So anyways, this is his contact information. If you're interested in working with us, schedule a call with Noah. You would not believe the value that we like to add before we even, we're not one of those companies. It's like, okay, give us money and then we're gonna start showing you strategy and stuff. We'll tell you everything, because by the time you know everything, you're not gonna want to do it. So it's easy
Right.
it's easy enough for us. We'll build out a whole strategy for you. Decide what's going to be best for you and your market with all your scenarios. Dig into your team and how it works and any considerations around that. And that's like the first step to working with us. Once we get all that nailed down, that's when we pull the trigger and say, let's execute on the plan.
Perfect. And one more time, man, I just want to highlight you. I know you work for some of the giants in this industry, man. So I wanted to give a kudos to you. And I appreciate you, hopping in and once again dropping some bombs of knowledge on us today, man. There's a lot of really good key takeaways there. And once again, I'm a big believer in diversifying out your marketing. I don't believe that you can be successful in just one channel. I think you need to, run analysis and see what's working for you based off your market, based off your team, and really have a consistent acquisition check the box process. So, once again, I appreciate you joining us today, man. And yeah, do you have any? Do we have any more questions out there? Anybody have any questions for us or myself or Brandon while we got them?
And while they're thinking, Aaron, I do have one comment based on
Yeah.
what you just said. Not to make this content not evergreen for you, but right now there's obviously there's a lot of talk about the weirdness of the market, right? Things are shifting. And I think what you said about diversification applies really, really well to this, because my opinion is that PPC is the most recession-proof marketing channel. And the reason I believe that is, let's just say you're doing direct mail. Let's just say the housing market crashes and now cost per hit is going to be lower and it's not, it's not as valuable to get deals or something. The government's still going to charge you just as much to mail a postcard. You're probably still going to have to pay the same amount to whatever VA you're paying to make that phone call, or pay the same amount to send a text message or something like that. But PPC, it's a dynamic marketplace based on supply and demand. When the value decreases, so does the cost. That's what always keeps it in check. unless there's like periods of transition or really unreasonableness. So that's where, like, let's just say there's a bunch of motivated sellers, and now more people are going online, and simultaneously things are less valuable. People are dropping out. We've already seen, just with people getting scared, a big decrease in cost per lead for PPC across the nation. So anyways, just something interesting to note. That's my personal belief. I think it's sweet. Like, it's almost as if the government would just like cut postage rates in half if the market goes down. They don't do that though. But PPC, Google does that, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Especially, I mean, we're in a digital age now, right? So, get ahead of the curve, get with the bandwagon, man. That's the way it works, right? So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those sellers that don't have a phone and know how to use the internet, they're being replaced with new people that do know those things.
Yeah, I mean, how many people that are going to see this? They get the direct mail lead with the guy that doesn't have a an email address. You got to physically go drive a contract to him, right? Those are the ancient days. So
yeah, well, the funny fact, like we did an analysis looking from 2018 to now. How have the trends been with the number of people searching for the keywords that we target? It's literally 3x the number of people going to Google and searching for those keywords over that 4-year period.
That's crazy.
And that's just an extension of the exponential growth that's been happening all the way since 2004. So it is interesting. Like, the trends are absolutely there. Like, there's like the increases in the total number of Google searches are there. It's way disproportionately larger within this industry, just because I feel like those old people that don't know how to use Google, they're phasing out, and the new old people are coming in, and they're looking to the internet.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I think that sums it up for today, man. Once again, I appreciate you for joining us. I appreciate all the wealth of knowledge of what you brought to the table today, man. And look forward to hopping on another call in the future and kind of going into some new things or any updates that come in the future.
For sure. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have anything for Brandon, reach out to him. And we left his contact in the info, and we'll drop it in the comments too, so that you guys have it as well. So once again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and thanks for being a part of today. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day.